Finally, a movie musical that doesn't have its entire color palette completely washed out.
No matter how hard Hollywood tried to make her seem all-American,
cheers,
she never stopped being Latin.
Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and on my channel I talk about entertainment media. I am delighted to be talking about today's review topic, which is the new movie musical, Kiss of the Spider-Woman. This is the new 2025 film adaptation of the musical, which is based on the 1976 Argentinian novel. Previously, I have reviewed the 1985 film adaptation, which was a Brazilian film, although the film was entirely performed in English. The original novel is set in Argentina, as is this new 2025 movie musical. I haven't read the original novel, but I looked up some write-ups online to get a general idea of how similar or dissimilar it is, though I won't be making references to that in this review since ultimately I haven't read that, so I'm not going to act as if I'm the right person to make those distinctions. I will, however, make some brief mentions of comparing this version with the 1985 film because that is something I actually have seen. What is Kiss of the Spider-Woman, the 2025 version? Set in Argentina in May of 1983, we are introduced to Falasteen, played by Diego Luna. Falasteen is a Marxist political prisoner who shares a cell with Molina, played by Tonatiuh. Molina is a genderqueer window dresser convicted of public indecency. Falasteen and Molina form an unlikely bond as Molina recounts the plot of a Hollywood musical starring his favorite silver screen diva, Ingrid Luna, played by Jennifer Lopez. Although the plot isn't really much of a secret, particularly because there is a novel, there's the 1985 film, and there's the stage musical, I will still keep the bigger plot points out of this first section of the review. Once we get to the spoilers section, I will be slightly less filtered in talking about a couple of the plot details. To start things off, my pull quote reads, "Kiss of the Spider-Woman is a vibrant love letter to classic MGM musicals. Tonatiuh's performance is the beating heart of this story, beautifully supported by Diego Luna's hard-shelled Falasteen. Jennifer Lopez's enthusiasm is downright infectious." I really enjoyed this, and considering how much of a disappointment September's theatrical output ended up being by failing to live up to my anticipation and expectations, I was long overdue for a theatrical win, and finally I got one. A bit of context if you are new here. I love watching old movie musicals. That MGM era is the standard that all movie musicals are trying to live up to, and nowadays they more or less always fail to do so. One example of this failure would be that if you are going to try to pay homage to the MGM Technicolor era of movie musicals, and then your color grading looks awful when everyone knows you have more than enough budget to make it look the way it should, you have fundamentally failed at the assignment. But in Kiss of the Spider-Woman, we have a protagonist, Molina, who has a deep love for this era of cinematic excellence, and something they do to pass the time is they retell the story of a fictional musical. Fictional as in, it's only something that exists in this film. It's not an actual movie musical that I could tell you to go look up and watch independent of this film, Kiss of the Spider-Woman. And whenever the film switches over to these sequences in the musical Molina is telling the story of, the colors are vibrant and saturated, just all around stunning to look at. That is how they're supposed to look. Now, I won't say that it's an exact visual recreation of that era, since we don't have the film grain adding that sort of texture, and the lighting during Technicolor was a lot more exaggerated. This is a detail that I had briefly considered nitpicking far more severely because of how close Kiss of the Spider-Woman came to recreating this visual presentation, but then I saw that they have a $30 million production budget, and I took back that nitpick because lights and electricity to light the lights gets expensive very quickly. So for $30 million, it looks great. And I honestly wouldn't have even considered nitpicking if it weren't for the fact that it is entirely clear that they did in fact understand what they were referencing. Early on in the film, we got a Sid Charisse name drop, and I could have audibly cheered because that's exactly what I'm talking about. Here's the thing. I've never looked up an interview or searched for a quote to verify this, but I just feel it in my bones that Jennifer Lopez is a Singing in the Rain stan, and I have never related to her more than I do now when I think about that. Because when she did her Amazon movie where it was her album, but it was a movie, and everyone was dogpiling on it on social media, cracking jokes, acting like it was the worst thing that they had ever seen, I was going, Well, excuse me, she did an entire dance number paying homage to Gene Kelly's Singing in the Rain number. If that's what she does when she's being self-indulgent, well then I like her all the more for it. And then now, when she's in this movie, Kiss of the Spider-Woman, she had a green dress on, and as soon as her character moved locations into a red room, I was so hyped. I felt like a sports fan where my team was winning or made it to the championship. I don't watch sports, I don't care, but you understand my meaning. I knew that she was channeling her inner Sid Charisse, and that's so real of her. Isn't that what all of us who love films dream of doing? Playing dress up and imagining ourselves as part of the art we love? And the dance numbers, some of them were better than others, but overall, there was clearly a much better understanding of the era this film was intending to pay homage to, because you got a lot more of these wide shots where you could see the dancers from head to toe. I get so irritated whenever directors who don't understand movie musicals try to do one, and then they're over-directing it in such a way that you cannot see the choreography properly. Show me the dancers from head to toe, or you need to go. What I really like about the musical aspect of Kiss of the Spider-Woman is how the musical aspect is woven into the narrative. On the one hand, the musical is a way of expressing Melina's deeper feelings. It's also fleshing out some of the political material. Essentially, art is something that Melina uses as a form of escapism. It's a source of inspiration, a way to dream, something that I'm sure a lot of us viewers can relate to, of using art as a means of escapism. But also, you can't just live your life using art as a means of burying your head in the sand. You cannot turn away from the world's injustices because doing so is fundamentally wrong. And even if you're just selfishly individualistic as a person, it's only a matter of time before it affects you directly. So, either way, enjoy your art, enjoy your stories. But you are just as much a part of this fight as the people who are already active. And these musical numbers, they're just so colorful and vibrant. We've got songs and dancing, gorgeous sets, and all of those things make the contrast so much more jarring when you leave that world and cut back to the harsh reality of being trapped in a prison under a US-backed military dictatorship. Kiss of the Spider-Woman is not a story you just passively witness. You do have to pay attention and think about the material. I could more easily follow the narrative and the many layers of the storytelling because I have already seen the 1985 film, but if you're completely uninitiated, I implore you to pay attention and keep an open mind, because the emotional impact of Melina and Valentine as individual characters, but even more so, the relationship they have across this story, it was so emotionally resonant and well worth watching. That's why ultimately, even with the small nitpicks I could have listed, my ultimate takeaway was how the film made me feel. If it's emotionally effective, that's already a strong indication that the film has done its job, especially when it's about this type of subject matter. If you want to watch a politically poignant, timely movie musical, if you are a fan of anyone in this main trio, you need to watch Kiss of the Spider-Woman.
Would you like to see it?
Now let's get into just a couple of spoilers. A fair bit of this is just going to elaborate on some of my opinions that I've already stated and how it resonates in its own right relative to my pre-existing impression of the material from watching the 1985 film. I would say that the relationship between Melina and Valentine is considerably more romantic and passionate in this new film than how it was presented in the 1985 version. And not only do I enjoy that because I love to see some good romantic material on the big screen, it also works well with bigger ideas of what the story is saying. Love isn't just something that exists for a romance between two people. Love of the well-being of all people is a driving force for revolution. Valentine is a revolutionary, hence him being prisoned under a US-backed military dictatorship. And revolution doesn't only apply to bringing down a dictatorship. Revolution is also a path towards bettering the living conditions of marginalized groups, such as queer people. Melina is genderqueer. I wasn't entirely sure what their identity was, but I watched a quick interview Tonatiuh did with Jennifer Lopez to promote this film, and he outright referred to Melina as being genderqueer, and he was using they, them pronouns to describe this character, so I'm doing the same. This story, despite being a period piece and originating from source material published decades ago, managed to be released at exactly the moment when a story like this is needed. A romantic, queer movie set in Latin America, Argentina specifically, but a story like this isn't only going to resonate with Argentinians or Argentinian diaspora. And it's a story that condemns a brutal, oppressive regime that violently terrorizes the people at large. Sounds exactly like what people need to be seeing right now. Something to get you energized, stick up for the queer community and for people who immigrated from or have ancestry from Latin America, but you can still enjoy a song and dance along the way. And that's the power of truly great art. I think that one asset of the older film, though, is that it took more time to have these two characters, Melina and Valentine, just talking and parsing out their ideological differences, whereas this new film needs to use more of that runtime to do these fabulous musical numbers that are both dazzling and poignant. I will admit, though, I do like this new film's ending more if I have to choose between the two. Not only is it an affirmation of the love these two people share, but it also feels more hopeful. It's not a fundamentally different ending from the previous film, but even the way that Melina's story ends, the destination is the same, but the delivery is different. In the older film, spoiler alert for a film that is 40 years old, Melina gets discarded like trash, and it's not the narrative that regards Melina as trash, but it's making a statement about the way regimes like those operate. The new movie, with new Melina, we see an ending where they've been able to make their own choices, knowing full well of the risks, but because of this journey they've gone on with the Spider-Woman, they're able to feel this sense of peace that I don't think the 1985 Melina was able to have. Tonatiuh, in particular, has been receiving a lot of praise for his performance in this. It's completely deserved. I don't know if they'll be given a fair shot of being in the running during the awards show cycle. I can't think off the top of my head about whom he would be put up against in the Best Actor category, but at minimum, he needs to be nominated because it's a beautiful performance. A trophy is nice, but ultimately, I would just be happy to see him being consistently offered decent acting jobs after this. So my recommendation is to go support Kiss of the Spider-Woman at the cinema. I know I need to watch this again at the cinema because I love to watch a big musical number on the big screen.